Good morning, friends, and welcome to another painting stream. Good morning, Lobster of Revenge. Good to see you. I know it's bright and early there. Man. Still very hot here. It didn't cool down very much last night until quite late at night. I did wake up in the middle of the night feeling, oh man, it's almost chilly. But, yeah. Sleep has been elusive these last few nights, what with the heat, but hopefully I have enough coordination to get some paint on some minis. I'm Andrew, also known as Thanatos. Welcome, and this is my painting stream where I sit down and I apply paint to some minis. I try to do it on a mostly daily basis. Sometimes I have to take weekends off, occasional weekdays off, but most days I am here painting. And it's just about, practicing new techniques, trying to learn how to do cool things with paint, and doing it with you, my friends in the internet, to keep me company. So welcome. Glad you could be here. And let's take a look at the minis that I've been working on these last couple of weeks. Go over to Zoom Cam. Here we are on Zoom Cam, friends. So last week I started work on painting these Raptoryx, and they are pretty much done now. I think they came out quite spectacularly. There's a couple little tiny details I want to take care of today, and then we're going to call those done. We've got 3 of those, and then I've got 3 Furies. We've got 3 of these Furies that are mostly done, not completely done. So this one, I just want to do a little bit of work on this skeletal hand and maybe rust up this sword a little bit. This one, oh no, that's a completed one. That was my example one. Caught up in cables. This one still needs a little bit of work. He needs highlights. He needs his eyes done. So he's got a little bit of work to be done on him. And then this one here, it's also almost completely done. And then I'm going to paint the outside rim of each of these. What we've done with the other models is just a matte black. So we're going to do that. And we're going to add some tufts to a couple of them to make the bases appear less plain. So that's the first thing we're going to work on today. It shouldn't take too long. The most time-consuming piece is going to be adding highlights to this one here. So for that, I'm going to need 2 colors of paint. Okay, perfect. All right. And then, once I'm done with that, I'm going to work a little bit more on these tiny little fountain terrain pieces. I've got 2 of these that I've been working on. So I'm going to do a little bit more work on those. And we'll see how much time we have to do other stuff today. So yeah, today is all about just sort of finishing details, putting those little touches on so that I can bring these into the store and they'll be ready to use for demos. So if you come into Battleground Games and Hobbies in Abington, Massachusetts, these are the WarCry demo. So if you want a demo of WarCry, you can see these figures and play with them. In the meantime, let's get right to work. I'm going to start with this Fury. I think looks like I already did highlights on his beard and horns, on this little skull here, and on the base. I'm going to do some rust effects, and I'm going to put that on a few different figures. So for rust, I'm using, shockingly, dry rust. It's a effect paint from one of the many paint kits I've bought down through the years. We're just going to dry brush a little bit of that in on some of the metallic surfaces on these figures. It's a subtle detail, but I think it does help to add a little bit of life. This stuff is drying up a bit. Oh, there we go. Okay. My Citadel synthetic dry brush, which we're going to be using for a lot of the work today. So as always, with dry brushing, I don't actually want a lot of paint on the bristles. You want to sort of mash it so it gets in between the bristles, so that when you go to apply it to the model, you're not painting a dark layer, you're just adding a little bit of detail. Subtlety is always the watchword here. I tend, when I'm putting rust on things, to brush from the bottom up, the assumption being that the rusted areas are the bottom sides of things, because the water has moved downwards. Causing corrosion as it went down. There we go. That was a little heavy. It's okay. You get the idea. This Raptoryx has a little blade sticking up out of the ground here. I'm going to add some rust color to that. See if I can get it in some of these nooks and crannies. I don't know if it even comes across on camera, because it's a very subtle effect. I feel like I need to do something to make the guts here appear more gruesome. So this skeleton that's embedded in the ground here has like guts coming out, and I thought that maybe just a flesh-colored wash would do the trick to make it look gruesome, but it needs a little something else. So we'll work on that in a moment. Let's see, there's one more Raptoryx that has, there we are, there's a little bit of a little metal spire here. Little rust color on the bottom edges of that. The goal here is just adding character. Pretty good. This sword could use a little rusting up. Oh, that was too much. Sure. Fine. I went a little overboard on that sword and got some on the terrain beneath it. So I'm going to get some brown just to color the terrain a bit. This is flat earth, which is the color that we used for all the terrain, the ground. Don't need a lot of this, and I don't have to be very subtle with this. Just want to I don't want the ground rust colored there because that ends up making it look like the sword is glowing. Ends up looking like looks like a light sourcing and not rust on the blade. Okay. I'm noticing on this model that this area here is very bland. I think it needs a bit more of a wash. So let's do that quickly. Using that Agrax Earth shade that we've been using as the wash for all these bases and for some of the figures. Don't want the base looking bland. The whole point of doing this basing texture was to make the base less boring. There we go. Cool. And then I think I'm gonna dry brush in some crimson on the guts there. Give them just a little bit more of a gruesome look. Really, these little tiny touch-ups and details probably will not take much time. Everything here is so close to done that this is not a majorly time-consuming undertaking. Crimson is not subtle, that's fine. There, I think that comes across as intestines or something. It's not perfect. I haven't really had much practice with guts and gore, so that's something I guess I need to put on my list of things to work on. Alright, let's work on this Fury. So what I've done with the other Furies for highlighting on the body portion is sort of two colors. I've gone in with a little bit of blue violet, which is a light blue or a light violet, and then atop that a tiny bit of deep sky blue. So it's sort of a two-toned shading. Just to sort of highlight the sculpt. Like, my goal here is, it's not like with the wings where I had to put in a whole lot of detail freehand. I'm trying here just to sort of bring attention to the shape of the sculpt. These folks have sort of wiry muscles sculpted in, and my goal is to try and make those wiry muscles stand out. Just trying to be delicate. Don't want too much here. Just enough to sort of give them some definition. I feel like I'm going too hard on this, but that's fine. Have to find the right sort of balance of paint on the brush. This is difficult. Difficult to be subtle as I'm attempting to be. It's not quite coming off the way I want it to be. That's okay. This is all very much a learning process. Highlight the knuckles on the wings here. So I feel like I want to bring attention to those parts of the sculpt.
musculature on the chest. Highlight his little six-pack here. Okay. And then the face. So I want to get his little ears. Sort of across the top of his brow. This is where I want it to be most subtle. I can catch his cheeks and nose. There we go. I appear to have gone somewhat overboard with his teeth there. So, yeah, okay, fine. All right, and then we're going to switch colors. Move away from this purple and do a teensy tiny bit. Oh, you know what? I didn't do the backs of his wings. Let's do a little bit on the backs of his wings. Highlighting the knuckles. The fun part about doing this is that you're just doing like the barest hint of paint and just the tiniest, that was a bit more than I wanted there, the tiniest amount of paint applied here just shows up in a very pleasing and subtle way. There. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, now let's do the sky blue, just as sort of an additional highlight in a couple of areas. doesn't take very, very much at all. It takes just the tiniest, tiniest little hint. So just on the broadest areas of purple, adding just a tiny hint of blue in. Just gives it a little depth. Just right on the edge of his brow. Tips of his ears. Yeah. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with that. Doesn't take much. Cool. All right. What brush am I using for this? This is my Citadel Synthetic Dry Brush. This is one of the new Citadel Synthetics that have just been released in the last month or so. And I bought myself several of these to try out. It used to be white. I don't know if you can tell. It had white bristles at one time. Now it is less so. But it's just a good sharp edge on the end of the brush, which is useful when doing dry brushing. A little bit stiff. You need a slightly stiff brush, or at least I find that very helpful in dry brushing. I realize I bought this just last month, but I've already gotten quite a lot of good use out of it. All right, let's get my Psycho, Wargamer Psycho, just to do his little eyeballs. So the eyeballs for these folks I've been doing in a two-toned way. First we do the majority of the eyeball in crimson, and this takes a little bit of precision here. Luckily, these models have prominent bulging eyes, which makes it slightly easier to paint them. There we go. Got a cat hair in the brush. When your brush is only like two bristles, a cat hair is a pretty significant risk. Okay. There we go. So you can probably see I'm sort of gently dabbing the paint in. I don't want to go too overboard. That'll do. And then, as a highlight, I'm going to add just a teeny touch of lemon yellow. This is sort of the last final detail that I've been doing on these folks. It's not so much like an eyeball or iris, it's more just a highlight on the existing eye. Not just the tiniest little highlight, because it just adds that extra bit that brings the eye to life. Yeah. Pretty good. That's a little bit more yellow than I wanted on the right side, so I'm going to try and tone that down by putting a tiny bit of more red underneath it. There. Oh, it looks great. All right. Well, that's most of the fine detail I wanted to get done on these folks. So I'm going to finish them by painting around the rim of the bases. For the Raptoryx and Furies, I've been doing the edge of the base in just a matte black. I'm using my matte black surface primer. Yeah, Amanda, these synthetic brushes are really nice. God, look at all this muck here in the lid of this. I wonder if I can pick this out. Hang on a moment. This is just the detritus of several paint sessions here. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm using my sort of broad-brimmed or broad-ended, this is the medium shade Citadel brush. It's got a very weird tip to it, but it's fine for this sort of edging, so. This is sort of the last thing that I've been doing to these folks. When everything else is done, just quickly do the outside edge of the base. It makes them all uniform, so they all have the same look. Both Raptoryx and Furies are part of the same Chaotic Beasts army. Makes them look a little cleaner. I don't really want any brush strokes in there, so I might just go around a second time. But with this, I am done with all the minis in this WarCry demo that I've been working on for months and months. There's still terrain to do, and I'll work on a little bit of that in the remainder of today's stream. But this is a pretty significant step that all of these minis are done to the best of my current abilities. I'm sure I'll look back at them years from now and be like, wow, I can't believe how rudimentary my skills were at the time. But I'm pretty satisfied with what I've been able to accomplish here. They came out looking pretty close to how I envisioned them as I was doing them. So yeah. Well, I was gonna, while I've got this I'm gonna do a quick dry brushing using my matte black primer here on the end of this skeletal arm, just where it's been broken off. I was thinking make it look as if it was perhaps burnt away or something. Give it a charcoaly look at the end here. Yeah. Sure, that's fine. That was just something that this is a small detail I wanted to do. And we can get back to work on the bases. So I know I always say this whole stream is all about new techniques and pushing my limits and trying to do new things. And I feel like with these models, I've gotten to do a lot of that. On the Raptoryx, I was able to practice a little bit of wet blending to do some fading from one color to another, and it came out looking pretty good. On these Furies, I did a lot of sort of freehand detail on the wings. So there's a lot of cool detailing I was able to bring into them. The bases for these are probably some of the most complex bases I've done, just in that I've sculpted in a lot of stuff. I glued some skulls, skeleton arms, stuff like that in to make them more interesting than just a sort of empty hockey puck of plastic. Gives them a lot of character. I got to play with these gorgeous metallic paints that were recommended by a friend of the stream, Novocaine for the Souls. And those metallic paints came out looking fantastic. Oh, Sphere Song. Hello, good morning. Glad you could join us briefly. I am done with finishing touches on the Raptoryx and the Furies, and I'm just doing the edges of the bases now, so that I can count them as completely finished. Glad you could pop in to say hi. I always appreciate it. There. That's 2 out of 6. I'll try to get some really good pictures of these and post them online. I'll post them in my Discord and on my Facebook. I feel like even in the brief period between when I did the first batch of Raptoryx and the second batch, and between when I did the first batch of Furies and the second batch, because there's 6 of each, and I did them in 2 batches of 3. But even in that short period, I refined some of my techniques, and the newer set look a little better than the earlier set. They're a little cleaner. Hopefully it doesn't detract from the army as a whole, Hopefully they don't look different enough that it's obvious, but especially the wings in both the Raptoryx and Furies look better in the second batch that I did, I feel. If I was truly obsessive and had unlimited time, I might go back in and redo the wings on the first sets, but I don't have unlimited time. I have other projects that I want to be able to work on, so I'm going to leave them where they are at. But it is cool to have a sense of progression, a feeling that I am improving as an artist. Still not super happy with the guts coming out of that skeleton. I really don't know what else I can do. You have to think about that. 'Cause someday I'll probably want to do gore on something else, and I have to have a better sense of how gore should be painted. Gruesome was really not my objective in doing these. So hopefully this WarCry demo can be used as a means to sort of introduce people to Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Because WarCry is an easy way to get into Age of Sigmar. It's a sort of accessible, low-cost way to do things. Because you don't need as vast an army. there is a new version of Age of Sigmar coming out next month. They are moving on to Age of Sigmar 3.0. They have a new starter box with 30 figures in it. I am not going to attempt to paint that, at least not right away. We're getting a demo copy, and we'll probably build it, but I'm not going to try and paint it, because it's taken me a couple months to do the 30 figures in this WarCry set. I have other things I want to do. I think I've mentioned I'm going to do some Marvel stuff. Crisis Protocol is the new Marvel miniature game that came out. Started coming out right before the pandemic, but a lot of figures have come out during the pandemic and in the last few months. And I want to paint up a Crisis Protocol demo for the store so that we can start getting some folks playing that. I anticipate that taking a couple weeks. There's 10 figures in the Crisis Protocol box. So most likely it'll take me about 3 weeks to paint them all up. And then I've got a bunch of other Crisis Protocol figures that I've bought for my own personal collection. I want to do something with those. Maybe a couple dioramas or something. I don't know. I don't play as many miniature games. I get the most enjoyment out of doing the painting. I think I've said that before. Where I really get my pleasure from miniature games is in the painting and the modeling. Almost there. There. One more. Coffee. Trying not to leave obvious streaks in this. Obvious brush strokes. Just makes things look a little neater at the very end. Clean up these edges. So yeah, this performs a couple of tasks. It cleans up the edges and it makes the bases uniform. So everything in this Chaotic Beasts army has this same matte black edging on the bases to make it obvious what army they're a part of. And with that, I am done, chat. I am done with all the minis. All the minis in the WarCry demo that I have been painting since, what, March? I think. Oh my goodness. There's still terrain to do. There's still a lot of terrain to do. And like I said, it's going to be a little bit monotonous. But that is the last of the minis completed. Oh, you know what I want to do? I'm going to add some tufts. I have a whole bunch of these Deadland tufts. These are a fun, simple, just quick way to add a last minute bit of detail. Uh-oh. Nope. Yeah, I'm putting fingerprints on. Oh, poop. It's okay. I just picked that figure up, which was still very wet. It's okay. I can fix it. Just, that was not well thought out, me. Okay. Let's not touch that for a bit. Maybe I'll wait to do tufts until the end of the stream. Give these a moment to dry. Okay. We'll come back to that in a moment. In the meantime, let's work on a couple of these little pieces. So I've got a couple of these little fountains that are just tiny terrain pieces. Gonna work on those a little bit, just for fun. Yeah, I know, lobster. What a milestone. Okay, I'm going back to my favorite brush. This is my small layer brush. And this little fountain here, I just want to get the inside edge here. And then we're going to add some brown to the bottom of the fountain. And some metallic bits. I can hardly believe all those minis are done. Hopefully I'm getting a little bit faster. I don't know. I mean, in the end I was doing roughly 3 minis in a 5-stream period. Wasn't always 3 minis in a 5-stream period, and a 5-stream period was not always 1 week, because I've had to take a couple of days off here and there. But that gives me a good sort of benchmark to go from. That in about 10 hours, I can do 3 minis. That's why I say it'll probably take me about 3 weeks, maybe slightly more, to do the 10 minis in the Marvel Crisis Protocol box. These fountains, I mentioned this before, but I want to try a new technique for me, which is that I want to actually fill them. I have some clear resin that I can sort of scooch in there. I'm going to attempt that. We'll see how it works. Figure these are a good thing to experiment with. If I mess up badly, it's not destroying any larger terrain pieces. Oh my goodness, all the noise outside. I think they must be doing road work on the road behind me. Or it's a street sweeper or something. ground at the base of this brown. Is this brown still wet enough to paint, I think? Precise I need to be with this because I am going to be doing a wash and I am going to be, like I said, adding that resin. Let's see how that looks when I do it. This is flat earth. Some of my paints here. Okay. See, there's some pebbles and bones and stuff at the base of the fountain here. The implication being that they're sort of stuck in the mud or something. This is very relaxing. Okay, so that's a little mud at the base of the fountain there, and then there's these rings here and these little protuberances that I chose on the other copy of this to do in metallic, so let's do those. And silver. Oh, my back. Using gunmetal for those. And then, of course, after we've done a wash, we'll come back to these and add a little bit of rust to them. So it's quick and easy and it's good weathering effect. I want this whole fountain to feel obviously very weathered and beat up. You know what I should probably experiment with? I don't know if I'll do that with this, but I should play with adding moss. I wonder what we have at the store that I could use as moss. I'm sure we have some flocking that I could put in here. I will check. I'll check when I'm at the store this afternoon. Let's see if there's something I could use as moss or lichen to add to some of these smaller terrain pieces. Give them just a little bit more character. I can also use it to obscure any part of the model that I'm not happy with my paint job. Any place where I sort of blep outside the lines and don't feel happy with it, I can just add some moss. So that's all those little spikes done, and then we'll work on those rings. They've each got a sort of a little plate that they're attached to. here. Cool. Quick and easy. And then let's do a wash on the other one of these, because I had already done all of this on the other fountain piece. So while I wait for this to dry, I can do a wash on the other one. Cool. Okay. Set that aside to dry. Switch brushes. Get my Agrax Earthshade. And we're going to apply this liberally to this whole piece. Bring out the corners, the shades, the edges, the details. I am amused that there are these little terrain pieces that are kind of superfluous. They don't really need these for the game. I theorized that these are a way to fill out the sprue. Trying to get it into the nooks here where the paint doesn't line up perfectly. But it's like when they were sculpting the terrain, they had leftover bits on the sprue, leftover areas. They just filled them with these fountains. But that's just, you know, me theorizing. I don't know that that's true. Who knows? I don't really know the ins and outs and intricacies of the game itself. So I don't know what purpose these small terrain pieces serve mechanically in the game. This is going to be tricky because eventually I'm going to be putting a wash on areas that I'm holding. Stuff is beating up slightly. I'm trying to avoid that. See, I'm being quite liberal with this. Just want the whole thing to have a sort of grimy, earthy look to it. Okay. There you can see it's beating up right there. That's what I'm trying to prevent. I think I'm going to have to pause in this because I'm holding the areas that I want to paint. It's going to be awkward. Oh, no. Okay, spam, spam, spam. Hang on. Why do people always assume I want to be famous? Who wants to be famous? Nobody. this, well, maybe I can hold it here. Okay. So once this has dried, I can do some highlights and add some rust. The more I think about it, the more I think getting some flocking to use as moss would really look spectacular on these pieces. And I can use it on all the terrain pieces, really. So I think that's definitely something that I'm going to want. Alright, so that's a wash, pretty thorough wash done on all of this piece. It looks very brown now. So now it needs some highlights. It needs some texture. Compare and contrast, chat. I just went from this to that. Did I go overboard? Maybe, but I think it's fine. I mean, it's supposed to be battered and broken and weathered. Okay, so that needs to dry. Let's add a wash to this. This is another of the terrain pieces that I have. The small terrain pieces. And really all it needs is a wash, right? Trying to get it down into the cracks in this masonry. That way I don't have to paint individual bricks. I'm just letting the wash do the job for me. Like that. myself some more Agrax Earthshade at some point. It's fine, we've got plenty at the store. I think because of the way that I'm doing this with the wash, I'm probably going to need to do each side of this independently, because I'm relying on gravity to do some of the work for me. And if I flip this over before it dries, the stuff that I'm trying to get into these cracks here will ooze out, and I don't want that. The wash is doing so much of my job here. So simple. So I think we decided, chat, that these tooth-like emblems here are Stormcast Eternal Lightning symbols, but I'll never think of them as anything other than teeth sculpted into the terrain. This wash is providing a lot of contrast here, making the sort of plain areas look a lot more interesting, which is oftentimes what a wash accomplishes. dry the brush and then just let it soak up some of the extra wash. That's great. That is so much faster and easier than painting individual bricks would have been. Woo! Just dropped it. That would have been dramatic. It would have gone right into that primer on my palette. I think I'm going to start to wrap up for today. We finished 6 figures today. Like, did those finishing details on 6 figures, 6 minis. We've started doing some finishing on some terrain pieces, which is nice. Making some progress on those. I'm gonna set this down to dry for now. That fountain getting dry, okay. We'll work a little bit more on that tomorrow. So let's set a goal, chat. Let's set a goal that by the end of this week, we've got 3 more days this week, but by the end of this week, we'll be done with these 2 fountains, these 2 walls, and these 2 little piles of debris. There's 2 of these. So that'll be, now that we're done with all these minis, our goal for this week is to finish these little terrain pieces. Should be doable, I think. I mean, we've already gotten a start on some of them. And it'll give me an opportunity to do some fun stuff with them. I'll get some flocking I can use as moss, and we'll add that to give them a sort of stuff is growing on them look. Do some highlights. They're coming along, and there's not a lot of them. So we'll make that our goal for this week, is to finish these. Like I said, I'm going to post some nice high-res pictures of these on the Discord. So if you hop into the Share Your Accomplishments channel, I think that's still what it's called. I was thinking about renaming that channel, but right now it's the Share Your Accomplishments channel. If you hop in there, you'll be able to see high-res pictures of the models that I finished today. Let's
let's finish today by sticking some tufts on these figures. My goal here, these tufts are just super simple. They're just little bits of whatever, grass that have a stickum base. Actually, I think I have some that are a better match for this. Give me a second, chat. Got so much stuff around my workstation here. But I thought I had some that were a better match. Ah, here we are. I'm gonna use these here, the wasteland tufts instead of deadland tufts. And you just sort of pluck them off and stick them on, and they're just, like I say, they're almost a cheat. But anywhere the base is boring and doesn't have much going on, I'm just gonna stick a tuft in there. So like this one, there's a couple of skulls there, but there's a lot of empty base. I'm just gonna stick a tuft in there. Just for that extra little bit of personality, and I don't want to do it to every base. My goal is, you know, make them look interesting, not overdone. So you just sort of plop that on there. You could add some glue. If these come unstuck, I might add some glue. But they're just a simple way to add a little bit of character. Let's see, and that one's pretty characterful. I don't think that needs anything. That one's already got a tuft. This is kind of dull. Let's stick a tuft right there. Just a small one. You can see they come in a variety of sizes, from quite large to quite tiny. Boop. So easy. Let's see. Stick one on here. So as I do this, I'd like to say thank you, chat, for joining me as I completed work on a few pieces here. We have finished work on all the minis in this WarCry collection now. I'm going to bring them into Battleground and folks can play with them. This was the most boring base that I had because I just had like a little mound with a skull there, so I'm definitely putting a tuft on there. So thank you as always for joining me, chat. It is having you here hanging out with me that makes this entire thing worthwhile, makes this work. Like, it is having you keeping me company that gives me the inspiration to continue doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be getting this done without you. So thank you, chat, for joining me. This has been a lovely time. I'm super happy with the progress that we've made. Stick maybe one more tuft in here, and I think we will call it done. Oh man, what an astonishing sense of accomplishment to finally be done with these. Oops.
just going to stick this tuft in the middle here. There we go. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here today, chat. We made some spectacular progress. I almost can't reach my keyboard. I've got so much stuff going on here. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when I will be working on these small terrain pieces. We'll see how much we can get done with those in the next 3 days. And in the meantime, be excellent to each other, friends, and enjoy doing whatever art it is you choose to do. Thank you very much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow.